In lesson 1.28, you're going to be learning about two different types of structures of sentences that you will frequently use in Spanish or in French. The same applies to both languages, whichever language you're learning at this point. And what these two structures have in common is that we're talking about sentences in which there is a single subject, one person performing an action, but there are multiple actions listed in the sentence, multiple verbs. It could be two, it could be three, it could be four, it could be a whole series of verbs. How do you handle a situation when you have more than one verb? Up to this point, you've been saying, yo vivo en Chicago, or j'habite à Chicago, with one subject and one verb. What do you do when there are two verbs, or three? Do you conjugate them? Do you adapt the verb to fit the subject, or do you leave them alone? Well, that's what we're going to see right now. With the first structure, it's a lot like, and you'll see this example in the instructional video at the beginning of lesson 1.28. It's a lot like when I'm preparing a lesson, and it's getting late at night. I know I've got to get this lesson finished for tomorrow, and so I've got to stay up late and get it done. Well, to stay awake, because I don't like to stay up late, I will probably multitask to keep myself awake. I'll listen to music. I'll find something to eat. Maybe I'll even talk with my wife who comes into my office, for example, while I'm working. Well, in that case, I'm doing all four activities simultaneously. I'm going to bet when you do your homework, you do the same thing and more. You probably do a number of activities at the same time, whether you're tired or not. In such a situation, in both languages I mentioned, French or Spanish, you're going to conjugate each one of the verbs, each one of the actions. You're going to adapt it to fit the subject. You will modify it according to the way in which you'd modify any verb when it has a subject. But you do it for all three, or all four, or two, or five of them, whatever. The second kind of structure is when you're talking about generally two different verbs. You have two verbs in your sentence. The first of the verbs is what you're really doing. The second is the subject you're talking about, the action you're talking about, but you're not actually doing it at the moment. What do I mean by that? For example, if I want to say, oh, I'm so tired, I want to sleep. Well, what am I doing currently? Am I wanting or am I sleeping? I'm obviously just wanting. I'm not sleeping as much as I might want to. So the action I'm doing is to want, and that is going to be conjugated. The second action, which I wish I were doing, but I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to express it in what's called the infinitive form. That's the original form of that verb, the way you learned it from me, or the way you'd see in a dictionary. And so these two structures, when you have a series of sentences, or a series of verbs, generally joined by the word and, as you'll see in the lesson, in that situation, you're going to conjugate each verb. In the second situation, when you have generally two verbs, the first of which you're doing, the second you wish you were, or you want to, or you like to, but you're not doing it, the second verb you don't touch. You leave it in its original long infinitive form. Okay, so that's what you'll be seeing in lesson 1.28. Be sure to watch the instructional video at the beginning of the lesson, because it'll kind of flesh out these ideas for you as I try and act out a situation where I'm multitasking and explain how that kind of a structure is expressed. And then talk about what I wish I were doing and show you how that structure is expressed. Okay, I'll see you in the course of our next class. Goodbye.